life, and then also with us creating this project.
Yeah.
Marriage is huge in allowing everyone else just to feel free, building a loving home, and just supporting the family in general. So my question to you is, what does like marriage mean to you now that you're 50 years old and shifted out of it? And obviously not married right now. I just want to hear your perspective as a 50-year-old man.
Yeah. So love the question. I'm going to digress for a minute, okay? Because I'm going to give you my perspective as a 25-year-old man getting married and what shifted with me, okay? So I think the thought of marriage has been elusive for many people. Disney movies, Happily Ever After, there is a facade of what marriage is. And me growing up, so a little bit of background for your people, okay? You and I have two different backgrounds. I grew up in what's called a broken family. Like my family, literally from the age of 5, I didn't have two sets of parents in the house. And so me growing up, I didn't really see other families together because their families were broken up. And why I say that is because I learned how to adapt being in a single family parent house. I never saw two parents come together to have a family. So when I got married, one of the things that I didn't know, I didn't really know what marriage was. And I think that's the big crux I wanted to just say is, for me, when I met your mom, by the way, right? She's the only woman that I asked to marry, by the way. So I've never asked anybody else to marry. And that's very sacred to me. But I didn't realize the difference between being a boyfriend, a live-in boyfriend, being engaged, and then the evolution of being married. And so I guess the question I would have asked myself is, why did you get married? And for me, it was because I used the word love and I used the word of the imagination of what it could have been. But to be honest with you, to be very frank with you, your mom and I didn't have those conversations of what marriage should be.
Gotcha.
And I think I'll pause there because I'd love to get your response. I think that's what a lot of marriages don't do, is they don't talk about what does that mean to me? What does it mean to you? Even in relationships, like what does it mean to be in a relationship? And I think I was afraid of the conversation because I didn't know how to lead the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so for me, just in a nutshell, for me, marriage is, we'll go get into, it's way bigger than what I thought it was, because I was already a dad already. And I met a woman that was a fascinating woman. She was wonderful. Like I saw her and I was just like, wow, like, okay, that was the one. So by the way, I knew I was going to marry your mom. When I saw her, I was like, that's the one. But the challenge is we never had those conversations of how we were going to parent, what our past was, what our trauma was, how we want to live our life, where we wanted to live, what kind of religion we were going to have. Like we never talked about it. So the challenge that we had is that when those hard conversations came up, we both didn't know how to handle it. And so marriage to me, it's a contract now, but I didn't understand the sanctity and the sacredness of it, of what it meant forever. And so because we didn't have those conversations of what forever looked like, it failed miserably.
Gotcha.
I'll leave it right there.
So yeah, there's a lot to that. It sounds like to me, like sometimes we jump the gun with the word marriage because it feels like it's the next step in line. Yeah. And when you're creating a family, again, everyone has their own religions, their own points of view of what the next step is. However, like it's now become this almost confusing sort of stepping stone where it feels almost obligatory. Mm-hmm. And so at the same time, it's almost just coming together just because it's a marriage license thing now. It's combining church and state. There's a lot of like different shapes and forms that is actually involved. And the reason why I really wanted to talk about it today is because a lot of younger people are hesitant towards marriage now because they don't want to necessarily get in a contract with the state. And that leaves a lot of iffiness. And like you said, if you're young or just don't have those conversations about how you want to raise kids, if that's in the picture, how you want to at least perform in the marriage, there's a lot of questions that don't get answered. And so the point of this conversation for me is to just, how do we prepare for that essentially, and what does it really mean to like have sanctity of a vessel for us to basically showcase that, hey, we want to spend the rest of our lives with this person.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, as a 50-year-old man, you know, I think what has really come to mind, like there's people that are my age, right? And if you were to ask, I'm going to say I'm 99% of the people who are divorced, okay? Both men and women that I've talked to, my age, 40s to 50s, most of them said that they thought it was the next step.
Mm.
That it was the next step. Like we lived together, we planned it, it was just the next step. And I think if you go into marriage like that, it's going to fail. Because this is where the conversations that I really love what you're doing, Albert, by the way, is you're so aware, and those hard conversations, by the way, if you don't have them, are going to be the decimate of why you break up.
Right.
If you don't have them. So would you rather have the pain of regret later or the pain of the reality now? And I think that's why, for me, I remember as you were talking about the marriages, what I fell into a trap is because I didn't know how to handle conflict, healthy conflict. I became
Mm.
agreeable. So when your mom and I had conversations, even though I may not have agreed with it or wanted to do, that people pleasing part of me said yes when I really meant no. And then I, because of my wounding, became resentful for the decision that I said yes to. So I think that those, I would say people say communication, but there's more than that. You know, you have to have emotional stability with that person. You have to have intellectual stability with that person. You have to have physical, not just sex, but physical chemistry. But you have to do it daily. And I think that's what the challenge we have is. A lot of marriages get into this habitual confine of habit and just a routine, when I think for me as a man, what I've learned is I still have to date my wife. And that's one of the things I'll tell you is one of my biggest, I'll call it regrets, is when we had kids, when you guys came into our life, we didn't have any babysitters.
Mm.
But I think I, as a leader, didn't lead well enough, and I used it as a crutch to where we never went on dates. So, and I wasn't firm enough to say, let's just go get a damn fucking babysitter to go out.
Right.
And so we did stuff as a family, which is great. But I think the sanctity of marriage, when you have kids, is really, for me as a father, as a husband, is to continue dating my wife. I didn't date your mom enough. I didn't date her enough. I didn't put her first enough. And so I know we're going all over the place, but I think for me, how I view marriage, if I am to get married again today, is a really understand that I have to do my job to keep myself happy, but I also have to make sure that I have to surrender myself to that person for what their needs are. And I didn't do that. I will tell you 100%. I was so selfish because I didn't know what I needed.
Gotcha.
And so those that are planning to get married, I think, and again, there's people in our family, I won't name names, but marriage isn't just about a ceremony and a wedding, by the way. A lot of marriages have this big party, and that's the culmination of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Not knowing that the hard work really starts when your first fight happens when you get married. And understanding how you fight and what you're, are you, do you yell and scream? Do you withdraw? Understanding your partner. And I think marriage is so complex because you're going to change. Picture this. If your mom and I were still married, we'd be married 25 years, right? We changed. I will tell you, in the 17 years we were together, or whatever it was, 16 years, we changed 3 times in that relationship. But we never talked about the change, and we never dealt with the change because we didn't know how to communicate the change. We just evolved around our kids. And I think, again, another lesson is I will tell everybody on here, if you get married and you have kids and you put your kids first, your marriage is going to fail. Because we put so much effort on you guys, bro. This is not you, but this is what your mom and I put so much effort into raising you. We didn't put that same energy into building our marriage. And that's the big plague that we got into. Is I see a lot of people that are married now, they're putting so much effort in their kids, and the dad's holding the kid, and mom's taking care of the kid, but you never see pictures of the husband and wife together by themselves anymore. And that, to me, is why a lot of marriages fail, is because they don't put the same effort they do with their raising their kids as they do in their marriage. I know we're going all over the place, but this is kind of what I'm thinking about offhand.
I mean, just with the last part and how, but again, it sounds like in your point of view, the marriage is the marriage, and then the family is the family. Are they two separate things?
Well, I think what it is, again, why marriage is so precious to me, I believe, is there is a spiritual contract in place that says no matter what, I'm never going to leave you.
The key distinction too is spiritual, not necessarily religious.
Yeah. So what I mean by this is, so when you're boyfriend, girlfriend, right? There's no contract in place that says I can leave whenever I want. Like my needs are being met, right? But I think this is where I'm going to tangent. This is where commitment comes from, right? This is where I think we're all jacked up, is we use commitment and goals as the same. They're not the same. They're not the same. But 90% of the people on this call with us view them as the same. So when it gets tough on that commitment, they're like, well, it was just a goal, right? So use that same analogy of boyfriend, girlfriend. Is a boyfriend, girlfriend's kind of like it's a committed goal, but I'm still not all in. When you get married, I think that's the commitment that says, now we're together. And no matter what, I'm not leaving you. I didn't know that. I didn't understand. I didn't understand.
Can you repeat that?
Live by that mantra that I was fully committed to staying no matter what. I took the easy way out. I mean, really vulnerable with you. I really did.
Yeah.
Because I didn't fight enough to do whatever I needed to do. I thought I did, but now I'm looking back 11 years, I didn't. So that's the big difference, is when marriage really is not just a contract with the state, we fall back on that, but it's a contract spiritually between you and me, my mate, that I'm literally going to surrender my life for you. And that's a completely different way of looking at it.
Right. Well, yeah, I was gonna.
Are you there? There you go. Okay, there you go. I got it.
Oh, cool. Can you hear me? Shoot.
All right, we're back.
Cool. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi died for a second. All right. Yeah, I think we get into the conversation too a little bit, where this new idea of like life partnership, and how it's pretty much the same as marriage. It's just a little bit different, where you don't have the sacramental version of it, and everyone has their own opinion on it, on what life partnership is. And it's just interesting now how it's becoming more common, to where you just domesticate with your partner, and how that can create a pseudo marriage. And sometimes, again, people can be more committed who are in life partners versus marriage. It's just a title. But I guess when someone necessarily claims that they want to have a life partnership, that's been looming through my mind recently, where it's fascinating where that's becoming the default now, because it almost feels too complicated to go through the marriage process because of that binding contract as well in the
Yeah.
state. So I don't know if that's something you've thought about more.
Yeah. So I'm in the mortgage business. Okay. So here's what's interesting is in different cultures, right? Let's say they're from the Middle East or from Mexico, is there are two types of marriages. Okay. There are religious marriages, and then there were contractual marriages. And I asked a lot of people, are you married by religion or are you married by contract? Because see, when you're married, and how I know that is they have different last names. And for
Mm,
me, that's a big hey, are you guys, are you guys religiously married, by your culture, like culturally married, right? Call it culturally married, or are you, Americanized married? And some of them will say, I'm culturally married. And that means they're married through ceremony, but not married through a contract.
okay.
To me, let's say, for example, I think the challenge with Western civilization right now, we'll get on a tangent, is they've made it really hard for men to get married to women. I'm gonna say that out loud because if we have kids and we build something, I have to now pay you 50% of whatever alimony and child support. So there's an incentive for a woman to leave a man. There's an incentive. There's actually a paid incentive. I can leave you whenever I want and still be okay financially, not emotionally. But so in other countries, you don't have that. So we've created also this really imbalanced playing field in getting married because we've seen, dude, this is a fact. 70 to 80% of the divorces are being initiated by
Mm,
women. 70
wow.
to 80 and breakups. So now we have this cultural thing happening that's real. And so now there's a lot of men who are, and I'm on different men's groups where men literally are, again, just a tangent that they're being penalized for being in a marriage for 10 years and the woman's leaving. So we have that now in play. So it's not that marriages don't work. I just feel like we have so many outlets now on why marriages are dissolving because the word commitment and these other problems that are happening that are not being fixed or they're not being addressed because it's too easy to
Yeah.
leave. So I think that's where the confusing part is. Should I get married? Should I get married? You may love someone, and I think I'm telling you, like, love isn't enough for you to keep the marriage because love is a feeling.
Right. And shit's gonna hit the fan.
Right. So how do you deal with this? So I think going into to answer your question is like before you get married, I think what your mom and I didn't do, I'm just looking at me, okay, is that we went in with the intention of having a family and having this life, which is the grandiose part, but we never talked about what's going to happen when the shit hits fan. How do we resolve issues when it's bad? Anybody can resolve it when it's good, but how do you do it when it's bad? And we never address that stuff.
Mm,
So I think that's where, again, the topic of marriage is really understanding it's not just about the marriage and the celebration and the ring. That's all superficial.
mm.
It's really about, are you really going to be committed for this someone for the rest of your life? And that is really a hard topic to have because it seems so far away. But I will tell you, incrementally every year you're going to change, and if you don't address those, you'll
Right.
get divorced.
Right. And so, okay, we've talked about a lot of topics in a little bit more. That's, I guess, an end goal is to get
Yeah,
married
yeah,
and start to build that foundation with that partner,
yeah,
essentially. And so it seems like, just based off of what I'm hearing from you and personally what I feel as well, you really have to own who you are at the end of the day. Because whether it is marriage or life partner, whatever you want to
yeah,
call that sanctity, right? To me, marriage is very important. You have
yeah,
to almost decide, like, this worth it with this
yep,
person, and do something, and are you able to communicate everything in between
yeah,
so that down the line, when things are going to fail, whether it's
mhm,
financially, whether it's
yeah,
emotionally, you lose your job, you could, whatever it is, what is your foundation?
yeah,
What are you going to do when that happens? And if that person is not even there for you, what's going to happen? How are you going to support each other
yeah,
during that process? And so I think that's the biggest thing that I'm learning to express more and more with significant others is like, and people like I've talked to is, what does that really mean to you with the idea of marriage? It's not necessarily the idea, and it doesn't have to be that per se, but more so like, what are you actually going to do, and how are you going to respond?
Yeah. So on that note, this is where it's important to where, as a man, okay, this is what I've learned about myself, and you and I've talked, is understanding what your role is. All right. I know we have these words like partners and 50-50, and I think they get convoluted to my role as a man when I'm with you, with my wife or my girlfriend, whatever. How I view it is, my job is to protect you. Okay. My job is to support you. My job is to honor you. But the two most important things are to lead and to make you feel safe. Okay. To lead and to make you feel safe. And I've interviewed hundreds of women, dude. Trust me. I went to this. It's funny. I went to this event about 2 months ago, and it was church going, and there was a lady, and it was all men. All men were there. Was about 200 men, and she asked the crowd. She's interviewed lots of women who were unhappy in these different groups, or maybe they were just in groups, right? And she's like, the number one complaint they had from their man was they wish their man would do what?
Make sure that they kept them safe and secure.
Lead. They wanted the man to lead. And the second was safe and secure. Think about that. So us men, we think we're supposed to, buy this house, get this car, blah, blah, all this stuff, right? Protect. Yeah, we're doing that. But they want their men in this age to lead first and to make them feel safe.
Wow.
So think about that.
Yeah.
For 1 second, I didn't know that, dude. So I think the dialogue really has to be is like, what do really women want from their mate, from their husband, from their partner, from their boyfriend? And then we're going to soapbox. This is where, where I'm at now, where this thing I call fuckery. How can men go fuck it off, go get drunk, go party, or not deal with the trauma how am I ever going to make you feel safe if I don't even know how to keep myself safe? And on the flip side, what a lot of women don't know is they think their men want love. No, we want we want respect, we want appreciation, but we also want to feel capable of doing what we need to do to be there for you. So we have these two ideologies that don't know how to communicate and don't know what each other's needs are. That, I think, what I've talked about different people that have been married a long time is they've come to that understanding to know that what their partner needs, what their husband and wife needs, and that's where they have been able to succeed. But
because it shows up in other ways too. It's like we all have this fundamental root, of security and wanting to like feel respected, right? It's just the confusing part is like, in what way does that show up? What I guess what I'm hearing too is like, and what I've communicated with other women specifically is like, with the idea of honesty, for example, a lot of times they ask for what our opinion is, right? And I've been there where I've just like splurged it all out, and it has not been the right thing. It was just all emotional dumping, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you're going to actually ask for our opinion, we have to also feel safe and be able to communicate that with. So honesty, you have to be able to, one, communicate what type of honesty you really need to, and two, willing to accept the answer that is there. And a lot of times it's not what actually happens because you're expecting a certain answer, and that's not how life works, And so I know I've felt in past relationships where I've literally haven't felt safe, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm independent enough to get my emotional needs somewhere else. I'm like, whether it's gym, working out, whatever it is, affection from other places, right? We've all fucked up before. But it's like, okay, if that's not going to happen here, then you're just going to find it elsewhere. So you have to learn to get that in some form. And it's pretty interesting how we don't really communicate. For a generation that claims they communicate a lot, that's something we're still learning. Granted, we are the let's say the guinea pigs of this. of sharing emotions a lot
Yeah.
more, and there's going to be overcompensation, right?
Yeah.
So leadership is going to be really important for our next generation to be able to actually figure out, like, how do we as men lead while also being able to show our emotions.
Yeah. I heard something interesting too. I was listening on a podcast or something, and this is the reality of things. Okay, is this is where communication comes in? Is like, let's say for example, you and I are dating. You know, we're you're the perfect match for me. Okay, and we go to football games together. Like we have the same interest. We like to go out. We go dancing. We do all these things together, and we decide to get married
Mm,
because we have all these common interests. And then 5 years later, somebody leaves. Let's say the woman leaves because that's 80% right now.
right.
And you interview her. This is what the interview happens. Actually, what happened is he's like, bro, he's like, it was going great. Like she was a perfect match for
Mm,
me. They interviewed her and said, I thought he was going to grow up.
right.
I thought he was going to grow up. Like I thought we were doing that stuff, and then eventually we're going to get out of this phase of playing video games or going to a game or dancing. And then he was like, she changed.
Mm,
She was expecting a different result and played that role. He was like, you're the perfect person for me. What happened? It's happened to me, by the way, in relationships, where I was like, wait, what happened? So my point is there was an expectation someone else had without communicating what their needs were. And I think, again, a lot of relationships and marriages will fail because it's my responsibility to tell you what I need. It's your responsibility to take what I say and try to incorporate what I need without sacrificing
mm,
yourself. And
yeah.
this is what I'm talking about, the surrendering part. And I think not enough people communicate their need, and then when they're not being met, communicate that need. And the other people was like, can I meet that need? So instead of all these divorces happening and breakups, let's talk about it. But again, we're in this wounded society right now where not many people are talking about what their needs are, and also giving their partner, their boyfriend, girlfriend, their wife what they need. And so we have this selfishness going on because naturally we are all, I hate this word, by the way, we are all naturally narcissistic, meaning we have needs we want for ourselves.
Correct.
But what's even more narcissistic is not communicating and giving that person that what they need. And that's where the wounding comes in about what we're not getting, what we're lacking. So again, another tangent, but it has to do with relationships and breakups and how to have a successful relationship in a
Right.
marriage.
I mean, we we all have to be a little bit
Yeah.
selfish, right? It kind of went back to the last conversation where you have to learn how to be selfish in order to be able to net
Yeah.
positively support the relationship. And so, I mean, the biggest thing here is we have to learn how to grow up and figure that out. I think that was a key point that I got out of this
Mm-hmm.
little anecdote where you hear it all the time where these men, and myself included, we don't know how to mature because we haven't learned what that ceremonial ritual process is naturally.
Right. Right.
We've gone far off in so many different directions on what is the right way to naturally mature. And now that's the best part about our Western civilization, the US, but it's also made it really difficult for every person to hear so many different perspectives. And
Right.
now we have, which has just exasperated that concern even more.
Mm-hmm.
So just to sum it all up, I guess three are properly, learn how to communicate properly, and that way it'll also foster a well supportive relationship that you can take to that next level as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, man. And I think, again, as I'm learning myself as a man, and the blessing in disguise is I've had so many failures, man, like so many failures. And I used to beat myself up over it. And part of it is I knew, part of it I didn't know, and part of it is I just didn't
Right.
want to know. And what I really learned about myself is everybody that's come in my life has given me a lesson or a blessing. And I've learned really like, wow, like I'm at this point in life like, wow, I could have done this better. I could have done this differently. But the old me was like, well, that she did that to me, or that happened to me. And so I think really is we're in this beautiful space of really self-reflection. Like, what can we do to get better? And for me, understanding my role now that I'm in my 50s, right? I'm not having any kids anymore. I'm a grandfather. And so as I'm meeting people in my life now, I have to understand some women are going to have kids, some women are going to have young kids, older kids. And it's about coming together at where we're at in that part of life. Like for you, for example, I guess my question to you is like, what what is your biggest takeaway about what marriage looks like for you?
Honestly, you have to just look in your mirror and say, am I able to support this person? It's so much on ourselves that we have to make sure that we can be able to support the other person. And that also includes, because it's something that I struggle with, is asking for help as well.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the person, right? But for me, it's like you have to learn how to support yourself and also be willing to be vulnerable. Because the tricky part about vulnerability is the more I don't become vulnerable, the less connected I feel with that person. And so you really have to just, when you don't want to, just dive a little bit deeper on what is actually going on inside so that you can let the other person in a little bit more. And that'll, what I've learned is build that foundation of connection more and more. And so, on a grander view of marriage, is once you do feel that vulnerability and connection, then you can actually foster each other up and create the space that is needed so that you can go through your day-to-day life with them, share the tough things that are going on in life, and then you can also share your wins with them and feel open to actually giving a little bit extra. Because think about this. On your day-to-day interactions, how many times do you actually connect deeply with someone? It's usually like at the coffee shop. Hey, like, how are you doing? Hey, I want this macchiato. Hey, I want this scone or whatever. And we don't really have those conversations anymore unless you really ask them like how their day is. They won't really open up, or looks like you're having a tough day. Looks like it's busy. It's just the same conversations over and over again. So you have to put more skin in the game to get more skin. To like get more connection. And so the reason why I bring that up with marriage is because on the micro scale, it's not going to translate to the macro scale unless you actually dive deep in the foundational parts of who you are.
Mm-hmm. So on that, um, so for me, my biggest challenge is in let me back up. What I've seen, how relationships can work and don't work, marriages and relationships in general, is how you deal with conflict. Anybody can survive when things are happy.
Right.
I've witnessed and I've experienced relationships falter, marriages falter, is how you resolve conflict. How do you resolve conflict?
Is that rhetorical?
And that's your question for you. Like what is, so for me, like, again, I'll put it back on me for a second so you have an understanding. Like, I'm okay with being called out now. I can handle it now. I didn't before. I used to take it personally. How I want conflict resolved is if there's something bothering you, tell me so that I have an understanding what's bothering you, and then give me some time or to actually absorb what you're telling me, so I know what I did wrong or what's bothering you. And so for me, I'm open to conflict now as long as you're not yelling, screaming, or just shutting down on me. I know that's when people's traumas are. So for you, like, how do you handle conflict for yourself? And what are some things that you struggle with in handling conflict?
I need someone to, especially in a relationship, is just to be open and just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And then work together on it. Because how am I supposed to know? Like, I have an idea. I'm getting better at like judging when I can feel that they're uncomfortable. and also I don't know how to relieve that if they don't
Yeah.
express that with me.
Yeah.
And so I've never been one to argue. I've never been one to really, even disagreeing is hard, and I will get sometimes just to practice and get the muscle going because I need to be a little bit more disagreeable. Um, and that's also caused some conflict too, which has been interesting. But for me, like it's really just addressing the small things because I know over time I'm really good at seeing the good in people. And if they do the same thing, nothing gets resolved and then there's no conflict at all because to me, I've grown up learning to avoid conflict because it was just
Yeah.
easier. And so I practice not creating conflict, but addressing the conflict when there is and needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, one of the challenges I've had over the years for me is I've had relationships where I've been yelled and screamed at.
Mm.
People might think, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because this is where your childhood comes in, right? The people don't realize like a lot of the wounding we have stems from childhood. It stems from unresolved wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come up with an environment that I did where I literally was hurt, I was yelled and screamed at. I was just told horrible names as a kid. And when that comes out with someone you care about and they're saying that to you, you do go into like shock. I would go into a shock. And that's something that I've had to really kind of understand more. I thought I got rid of all that stuff, but it's still there. Like these little idiosyncrasies that I've still going through. And even I withdraw sometimes when I'm not being heard or not being shown value. And so these are things that I've had to be aware of. And I think that's what's important in relationships and this is where trust comes in, right? This is where safety is. Yeah, both women do need safety, but so do us as men. I need to know that I can come to you and tell you something or express something without you shutting down on me or telling me to shut up. And this is again where conflict comes into where sometimes I think I'm the problem. And this is where the people pleasing comes in, where the anxious attachment comes in, where I'm causing it. So I think, again, relationships as you get older, they get more complicated because you're dealing with a bigger set of wounding that if it hasn't been addressed, it's a big elephant in the room. It's going to come out at some point in time.
Right.
And I think that's why talking about it, communicating, and also recognizing that not everybody's going to be that one person you think that's going to be in your life forever. They may be the one that hurts you the most. Well, how do you deal with that? Right. So again, this is where marriage is really important to where you can love someone so much and be there for them. But if they're that bad for you, you might have to leave. And this is where the conflict comes in. Well, do you really want to? So it's a very complicated subject and there's no right answer. But I have seen literally marriages go on for 25 years. I met with someone today where they've been together for almost 30 years. And they had this up and down. They had this roller coaster. They had those big fights. They had the separation. They came back, and then something clicked after so many years. We're like, that's who I really am. They accepted each other. And I think that's where we're so, including myself at times, so Albert. I think we look at all the one or two bad things that people have, and not the 99,000 good things. And then we focus on the three things that are really not that big of a deal, but we make it because we have to. So I'll tell you something my therapist said to me. She's been married 25 years on her third marriage, okay? But she's been married for 25 years now. And she just told me, I go, so I won't say her name. I go, so tell me what the secret is. She goes, Albert, there were some bad things he was doing, but I had to outweigh the good things with the few bad things. And eventually those bad things he was doing, he was a drinker. He stopped drinking. He got rid of it. So there was only two things where he annoys the fuck out of me sometimes, but there was 99 other things that he was really great at. I had to overlook these few little things that were bothering me because he was such a really good man to me. And I think that's what we have to do is really look at weigh, not now there are 99 bad things and 3 good things, and now you're dumb
Right.
because now you're not seeing what's in front of you. But I think because of social media, where we're at these days, we're ready to move on when things get difficult, as opposed to who do you really have in your corner, and are they really good for you?
Mm. Yeah. The the last two things are amazing. For me, it's funny how you mentioned how we look at the 99 bad things or the 99 good things. I don't know which one is which sometimes. Sometimes we think it's good for bad, but we don't fucking know. And so a big thing for my generation is red flags. Everyone thinks one or two things, just big no-nos, and I think that's great. You should figure out what you like and don't like. But what you just mentioned, people think they're red flags, or most of the time, I call them yellow flags just because
Mm,
it's easier. I think most of the time they're yellow, and it just seems like it because you have a bajillion other
yeah,
girls that might be interested in you,
yeah,
or especially from a girl's perspective, I've asked multiple girls, every picture they post, there's at least a handful of guys, so that probably doesn't help the
yeah,
situation. And so you see all these people, or you see all these characteristics that you're like, I don't really like, oh, I don't like, and you become so picky that you don't know how to foster a relationship, because
mm,
that's a skill set in and of itself too, is how do you nurture relationships too, where if someone is treating you right, if you click and connect, you have to be able to like learn how to actually form this relationship, or else how is it ever going to blossom? Because if
yeah,
not, you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and
yeah,
you're just in the same patterns already. And social media has exacerbated this problem, and it's a great thing, and it's a dynamic that creates chaos sometimes, and we're still learning how to navigate that. So, I mean, you probably feel it all the time too. When you're in the dating pool, like how are you supposed to navigate when you're in your mid, like you're 50, so you have a greater pool of people to like interact with
yeah,
because everyone's in different lifestyles. People have kids, people are
yeah,
retired, and you're trying to figure out like what is this net benefit, and everything's so transactional now because people don't want to waste time
yeah.
when you've already been wasting time just swiping left and right anyways.
Yeah, I remember you when we talked about this topic. I remember when I was your age, right? So when I was your age, I was thinking about, you know, the one I wanted to marry and having kids and raising a family. Those are all great qualities, right? Those are all, it's an awesome feeling to have. And then we talked about, what we need to do to keep that in place. Now that I'm 50 and I've been married and I've seen, perspective now of things, you know, I look at life differently now. I look at women differently now. I look at what I want, and now my needs are way different. I don't need someone to provide children for me. I don't, all these things that I needed to. I want someone to build something with me. I want someone to have things in common. I want to travel and interest, working out, um, to support what I'm doing. Like I mean, what we're doing, bro, is really special. But not everybody agrees with what I do.
Mm.
And they have to understand, like, I'm in the limelight, not trying to be this guy, but I'm putting myself out there. So there's whoever's with me has to understand that's part of the gig.
Mm.
I wrote a book, some spicy stuff in there. I'm out on the internet expressing on a soapbox of what men should be and women. And so for me, that person has to be super thick
Mm.
skinned and strong to understand this is the man they're going to be with. So what I'm saying, I'll say it out loud, is I'm very purposeful where I want to do now. When I was 25, I wasn't purposeful. I was manageable. So I think for your generation, especially you as well, we talked is to be purposeful in what you want to build, and that person that in your life will support it. And you can still build something with someone as long as you know that. See, here's the thing, dude. Is I used to think my purpose in life was to be a dad.
Mm.
No, that was my responsibility. There's a difference.
Mm.
I thought my purpose was to be a husband. No, that was my duty. Way different. But I was so messed up, didn't understand definitions or myself or who I was, that I intermingled those wordings, not understanding distinct duty, responsibility. And by the time I'm 35 years old, I'm completely lost. I don't know what to do in my life other than, oh, go earn a living. So I lost. I had no purpose. Because what happens, what people don't know, bro, is that when you're 35, or let's say you're 40 with a 15-year-old, it ain't about your kids anymore. Your kids could give two shits about you. Now what are you going to do with your spouse? I didn't have purpose of where I wanted to go in life. So when I raised my kids, I didn't. I was empty. I think that's what a lot of men are feeling when they're my age. They call it a midlife crisis, is because we get into these marriages with the anecdotal philosophy of raising a family, thinking that's their purpose, that's their responsibility and duty because they created that, not knowing that that span is only 15 years, dude. Like, you're only a daddy. You're only a daddy for 8 years. You're a dad for 18 years, and you're a father for life. But a lot of people put so much emphasis on those titles that they forget about who they are as a person, who they want to be, who they need to be to the world. So what my soapbox really is, full circle, is I'm at a point in life where I'm for the first time understanding that. And there's a lot of women that don't understand that. And it's really hard because they're with a person that now has an identity of what he wants to do. And that's very, I'm sure it's very daunting and very intimidating. And they don't know how to navigate it because they don't know how to express what they need from me.
Right.
And it's on a tangent, but just how to express that because it's
Yeah.
different.
I'd love to dissect that more, because we are living to be way longer now, right? Like,
Right. Great point. Great point.
that hasn't helped it too, where it's like everyone's duty and responsibility was that before.
Yeah.
And so we've expanded this, and now we have so much more technology, not even just in medicine, but just
Oh,
in their lives. Everything's more efficient, and we are still trying to figure out how to be efficient in those lines.
yeah.
And so now we're just twiddling our thumbs because we don't know what to do anymore. And so you see the people, and I think we should touch on this more on another episode, where people don't know how to like interact. So they go to Netflix, go to the
Yeah.
easy stuff. They don't know how their bodies after kids. They don't know how to treat their bodies, like treat what type of nutrition they need to
Yeah.
have, like all the net benefit, or read, or right, whatever that outlet is that is going to take them to that next level throughout their life. And the purpose and identity is wrapped into something that's only going to be temporary, and everything's temporary. So we have to be able to continue to evolve over time.
Great point.
So,
Well, think about this, right? So again, 100 years ago, 100 years ago, in 19, what's that? 24.
25, yeah.
50,
We were in
50 was fucking really old, dude. Think about that. The lifespan is way different. 150 years ago, the lifespan was 40.
mm,
So we're living in a way different age where our job as parents back then was just to build a family to survive.
right,
Now we're building families to do.
right,
And this is where the modern man is getting lost. That's why I'm stressing with men your age, like, low hanging fruit is being a dad. Low hanging fruit is getting married. It really is. Understanding the stats of what's happening in life is you have to build yourself. Not many people like this narrative. I'm saying, like, you got to go build yourself. And again, I'll say it on this. There are 5 times as many women there are in this world than are men. The numbers are outrageous.
Huh.
That means there are way more women that men can find than there are women that can find men.
Right.
So if there's that many women out there, why are we settling? Go
That's good.
find yourself, become yourself, build yourself. So whoever comes in and out of your life, there's choices.
Right.
There's just, I'm being very pragmatic about this, but the reality is that's what I've had to come to the conclusion is your dad at 51 is continuing to rebuild himself. Yeah, it gets lonely. Hell yeah, it gets lonely. But I'm at a point now where the guy you knew 5 years ago was a hot mess because I didn't have any
Right.
purpose. I, I, I put all my eggs in the basket in a woman and a family. I'm being real.
Right.
And I gave up you guys who were my family. How selfish and stupid was that? No wonder why I hit rock bottom because I didn't have any purpose in life and who Albert wanted to become. So now your dad is a different man, and now he's repelling way different people out of his life who were never his friends to begin with. And now I'm attracting different people because they're on the same journey that I want to go on. It's very, very lonely because now when you identify as somebody that's doing something different, you now polarize people. And that's the difficult part of not just being somebody, it's being purposeful.
I mean, yeah, that's the part of that's why we're so different too. Is like you have to take
Yeah.
ownership of this, or else what else we're gonna do? Like you can continue doing the same stuff over and over
Yep,
and over,
yep.
and then you're gonna keep doing the same things and wonder 10, 15 years ago. I mean, you've shared it so many times. Like you don't know where you're going. You're gonna just keep wandering, and even at 25, like I felt like I've wandered sometimes and don't even
Yep.
know what direction it is. And even if you just choose a direction that like feels powerful, at least you'll learn some lessons along the way. And I think along those lines, it gets very difficult and very, very tough.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can feel this too. Is if you think you like are just bullshitting most of the time and you don't really know what's going on, it makes it feel like it's more difficult. But sometimes you got to just be that uncomfortable to figure out, okay, this isn't actually what I want to do. And then you pivot and then you move on. It can be daunting, but you're a great example. I'm a great example of how we can pick up our chops and say, no, this isn't what we want anymore. Let's go move on and actually build the person we are supposed to be and learn and discover and find out what else is out there beyond what we know now.
Yeah. And I wanted to, I know we don't have a whole lot of time left here, but I wanted to express like, for everybody that's been watching this for whatever on it, like this is why this dialogue doesn't happen with dads and sons. I'm going to be honest with you. Like it's for a dad to really tell his son that he fucked his marriage up and he left his family. It was daunting at me to admit that for a while, but I've come to grips because I had to own that part of me who wasn't mature enough, nor did I understand, and nor did I want to understand how to be a better husband and a father. It takes massive fucking balls and courage to say that, by the way, to a son. But the reason why I can say it to you is because you and I have developed enough trust to be open and honest without taking it personally. Because it doesn't exist anymore. That life doesn't exist. So I had to really retrospect what happened. That's what growth is. It's about looking at who you are and finding out what happened so you don't make the same mistakes in the future. That's what growth is. And so by just having this platform, I don't care if anybody believes in us or I don't give a shit. The fact that you and I are doing this is way bigger than anybody watching this. They're going to get a tidbit of what we're doing. Like, wow, that's different, right? Wow, my dad never talks to me like that. Well, my son never opened up and like that. And the reason why, dads, is because you haven't provided a platform or a safety enough for your children to do it. Your children, they may like you. They may accept you, but they don't celebrate you. They don't respect you, and that's the difference. I feel celebrated by you. I feel respected by you because it's something that you and I have had to earn together.
Yeah, and it takes courage to just be able to just throw it out there and
Mm-hmm.
just see what it is. You've also built a very like you said, you built this space to be able to just like share this vulnerability, and we both put something out there to say, hey, like this isn't what we want. This isn't a relationship that is nurturing. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't a relationship that is actually being fulfilling and learning and growing and also just being open
Mm-hmm.
about what's going on in life and just being straight up. And that's the platform that we want to build for this, is to extend it, share it, so that people can learn, so people can understand like there is actually more. Hey, my dad is not feeling this. Hey, my mom, I don't feel connected with them. My family, my brother, my sister, whoever it is. It's not just, yeah, it is between a father and
Yeah,
son, but it's more than that. It's
yeah.
more than what is going on right now. It's for the ripple effect, honestly.
Your boy Tim
Yeah,
Tyson.
what's up to you? But
Yeah, no, man, it's beautiful. You said it brilliantly. Yeah, it's not just for father and son. That's a platform, but what I love. I'm going to shout out to your mom and your sister, Kaylee. I thought there was a point in time where they were at odds with each other, and your mom and her developed such a really great relationship by having these talks. So it can be done with moms and daughters. We have personally seen it. We've witnessed it, and now for this this container. Yeah, I'm not married to his mom anymore, and she's remarried. But because of the relationships we've been able to build, we spend my granddaughter's birthday together. We spend Thanksgiving together. We spend the holidays together because it's important to us to not segregate our time, not have go four different ways during the holiday. We all come together because, and I'll share this with what your mom and I talked about. It's like her and I both had FOMO of missing out of when she leaves you guys leave my house, you guys come to go to her house. She was like, damn, I didn't want them to leave, and I didn't know that conversation. We just had it this past year because we can communicate now to where I felt the same way. And like, no, let's just get together and hang out. Like, let's go vacation. Let's whatever we need to do so that when you guys are in town, we can experience everybody together. And we could talk about that another time, but I just want to bring that up to contain it. This isn't just about dads and sons. That's the platform. But there's some really big healing that can happen if, and only if, I said it 1,000 times, if you as a person are willing to surrender your ego, own your shit, have radical responsibility for how you show up, and have zero expectations of an outcome. Not expect that person to conform or that person to get you back. You do it wholeheartedly because it's in your core to become better. Without expectation, things will happen in miraculous ways like what we're doing now. It's my belief.
yeah, and I'm excited to again see where the next
Yeah.
conversation goes. But thank you for another great episode. It was fun to just share a little bit more. And I know we started with marriage and
Yeah.
it went to more
Yeah.
just personal responsibility again.
Yeah.
We preach that time.
So real quick before we
Yeah.
go, we sign off. Like, so what? We talk about what we're going to do afterwards here, but what is while it's fresh? What is your takeaway from today?
Again, just you have to look in the mirror and be willing to put some skin in the game, whether it's marriage, whether it's your family, whether it's your personal endeavors.
Mm.
It goes back to how can we learn, adapt, implement, and just be willing to take that chance because we don't know what's going to happen
Yeah.
regardless. You have to be able to communicate that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I have to take away is just how do you
Yeah.
share your voice? How do you share who you are? And it'll propel yourself tenfold, a
Mm.
hundredfold. That's
Mm.
the platform that we're building right now. So, what do you think?
For me is I'm just so proud of you, dude. Like to be on a call with you and just like talk. My takeaway is, damn, we're doing this, dude. And that the ultimate freedom is just being truthful. Like the more truthful I'm with you, I know we have people on here that I don't know, but the more truth that I can spit fire about, the less lies I hold on
Yeah,
to. And it's just so like freeing for me to be able to just talk openly in a conversation with you that some people will say it's taboo or you shouldn't talk about that. And I believe that's completely false. I think you should talk about it because I just feel more open with you. I feel more connected. I feel more trustworthy with you. Um, so yeah, my takeaway is that I'm just building more and more um, friendship and trust with you, which is unbelievable to me, by the way. So
appreciate you. Yeah, I didn't expect anything to be like this ever, and so it's cool that we've talked about it
yeah,
and actually are in this because it's gonna just grow, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And I love you very
yeah.
much for wanting to take this chance and just let it ride.
All right, brother.
Cool.
All
I
right,
love you,
love you too, man.
and we'll see y'all next week on Tuesday, 6:30 PST, and there's more to
Here we
come.
come. Peace.